So this month we're talking about anger. There's been a lot coming up in my world around anger. And we're going to talk about anger specifically from a nonviolent point of view, what nonviolent communication might tell us about anger and help us work with anger a little bit differently. So I'm going to do a little bit of basic overview of how we think about anger using a nonviolent lens. And then if you have specific places where you're getting stuck or specific nuances that you'd like me to speak to, go ahead and send me a chat or raise your hand and I'll, let me see if I can get my participant thing up there. There we go. You can raise your hand and I'll get you online and we can have a bit of a chat. So the first thing that I want to say about anger is that we do culturally, I think, need to make peace with anger. And what I mean by that is that anger is not a bad thing. And we tend to be afraid of other people's anger, and we also tend to be afraid of our own anger. And in part, this is because we really haven't learned very good regulation techniques and ways of understanding the light side of anger. And many of us have this belief that if we get angry or if somebody else is angry, that anger is the same as violent. And I want to start by talking a little bit about how anger and violent are different. So anger results from the combination of two things. One, you have some deeply unmet needs. Something has happened and some needs that you have are unmet. And if you were purely in touch with the unmet needs, it's unlikely that you would feel anger. You might feel intensity and you might feel sort of a whoosh of energy, but the feelings that you'd most likely be more in touch with would be feelings of vulnerability, perhaps indignation, hurt, fear, some kind of an anxiety. These are more the feelings that would come with the unmet needs. But what we do with our unmet needs is that we layer on top of them a lot of thinking about either what is wrong with myself or what is wrong with this other person. And the degree to which I'm focused on everything that is wrong with them that they should or shouldn't have done, I'm going to be angry. And the more that I put my attention on that kind of thinking, how they are wrong, how they are bad, what they need to do differently, how they should change, I'm going to take the intensity that came up with the unmet needs and I'm going to channel it into something external. And I'm going to be more likely to want to use some kind of force to get somebody else to change. Okay? Some of us turn anger internally. And when I turn it internally, it actually converts more into guilt or depression than anger. So anger tends to be more of an externalizing emotion, not always. We can think about ways in which we're angry with ourselves. And then when we're using force to try and change somebody else, we're getting far closer to some kind of a violent intervention that while it often makes us feel better in the short term, it can be cathartic and we can feel justified. It doesn't do anything to actually heal, shift, or change the dynamic that we're going to bat for. And if we're not serving, if we're not aware of and consciously serving the needs that are unmet, we end up using a lot of very self-sabotaging behaviors when we're only in touch with anger and judgment. So I'm going to stop there for a moment, and I'm just going to ask you.